Hi everybody and welcome to an Age of Fantasy Skirmish Battle Report. 4 heroes are trapped by an evil necromancer in his castle. Together with an Orc Shaman, they were defeated by the Undead and now unable to stop the forces of Havoc and the Undead in their attacks on Teniras. The Orc Shaman barely escaped and have now returned to his tribes in the northern part of the kingdom. But his people are equally threatened by the Necromancer, and he also feels he owes his life to his 4 allies. For many days he tries to find the weak spot in the Necromancer's plan, and suddenly goblin scouts bring him news of a prisoner transported by demons near a village. It's time to act. Smoke rises from the village when he arrives. And when the shaman and his group of scout goblins and ogres arrive, they can see the villagers turned into mindless zombies, and behind them, bloodthirsty demons and a wizard. In this group we have Sulgurk, the ogre champion, armed with great weapon and a tough value of 6. 2 other ogre warriors armed with dual hand weapons and a tough value of 3. And then a group of goblins armed with hand weapons as well as throwing weapons. And the Orc Shaman is the leader of the group. He is furious, a wizard armed with hand weapon and has a tough value of 3. On the other side of the battlefield, 2 groups of zombies armed with claws. They are slow and undead. And then 3 blood warrior demons. They have demon ability, which is scout or ambush. They are furious, and all of them armed with great weapon. One of them has the Banner of War, which gives friendly unit within 12 inches the impact special rule. And then a wizard with a tough value of 3 and armed with dual hand weapons. And in reserve, 2 blood demons that have chosen the ambush ability. They are of course also furious and armed with great weapon. This is a breakthrough mission, so there will be a skull objective in each of the army's deploy zones, and whoever controls the most objectives at the end of turn 4 will be the winner. And the 2 groups will deploy with the demons in section A and the orcs and ogres in section B. Now let's roll off. The Orc Shaman with a 4 and the wizard with a 2. So the Orc Shaman, his ogres and goblins will activate first. But before the first round, the blood warrior demons here with the scout ability are able to move up to 12 inches, so they reposition themselves and they are now closer to the enemy. That will be all for deployment. Now let's go to round number 1. The first to activate is the unit of Goblin Scouts. They move slightly forward, and from here they can reach the first Blood Warrior with their throwing weapons. They have a range of 12 inches, and they have 3 attacks hitting on 5s. So 1 stone or whatever they throw with hit the target, and the Blood Warrior fails his defense roll, so he is hit by a stone right in the middle of his face. He takes 1 wound and goes down. And he fails on the wound chart. He is taken out by a group of goblins. What a first move. Next up, we have the first group of zombie villagers. They are slow, so they can't move that far, but they also try to keep themselves out of charging range. Next activation is the first ogre warrior. He moves to the right of the battlefield and takes cover behind the burning house. And now the wizard. He rushes towards and up to the first floor of the damaged building, and from here he has a great view of the battlefield. He can also try to cast a spell, the spell Wild Form, on the zombies and on this blood warrior. That will give them +1 next time they fight in melee, and he needs a 3. And that means he is successful, so we'll just put a die close to the units to remember their +1 melee next time they fight. The shaman himself moves slightly forward. He guards the objective, but he also tries a spell at the 2 ogres. This time he tries Let's Go. He will need a 5, and if he succeeds, which he doesn't, they would have had +3 or 6 next time they advance or charge. But he failed. And then the second group of zombie villagers move forward. They can't reach any enemy units with a charge, but they can try to get themselves into a better position. But they might have stepped too close, because now one ogre warrior charges the group of zombies. He has 4 dual hand weapon attacks, hitting on a 4. And that was really, really poor. He swings his club, but he hits nothing. Instead, the zombies can fight back now with 6 claw attacks hitting on 5s, and they hit twice. The claw attacks are AP nothing, but the ogre warrior will have to defend on a 4. And he makes 1 and he fails 1. So he is wounded by the zombies. He takes 1 wound and then backs off 1 inch. The leader of the Blood Warrior demons advances, and, well, he also falls over, but he takes position close to the objective. The Ogre Champion is the next one to move. He rushes towards the left side of the battlefield here, where he will be close to the wizard and also to the Blood Warrior over here. And now the Blood Warrior here charges the ogre in the middle of the battlefield. He has the impact special rule because of the Banner of War, and he has an extra attack for a total of 2 because he's furious. And he also has +1 melee, so he will hit on 3s instead of 4s. He hits once here and fails the other, and that means 2 hits coming against the ogre. He will try to defend the impact hit first. He needs a 4. And he fails that one, so he is hit at least once. And then he needs a 6 for the regular hit with the great weapon, and he makes the defense roll. So 1 hit for a total of 2. He can't fight back now, but since he has already fought, he is fatigued and will need 6s to hit the Blood Warrior back. And that is nowhere near enough to hit anything. So the Blood Warrior will back off 1 inch. That was the last activation of round number 1. The armies have moved closer towards each other. They are still guarding their objectives in their deployment zone. And then the goblins managed to take out 1 Blood Warrior already in the first activation. Now let's go to round number 2. And the first thing that happens in round number 2 is that the 2 Blood Warriors with the ambush ability will show up, and they deploy in the back of the right side of the battlefield behind the Orc Shaman and the Ogres. They will deploy 9 inches away from the closest enemy unit. And the first to activate is the Ogre Champion. He charges against the building and on top of the building to attack the wizard. He hits on 4s, and that looks bad. And once again, an ogre swings a giant club, hitting nothing but air. So the wizard fights back now. He has 6 attacks, but he needs 5s. And he fails at least 3 of his attacks here. 1 hit. And let's dig out the remaining dice here. Another failed attack. And the last one is a 6. So he will hit twice. And it's AP nothing, so the Ogre Champion will defend with a roll of 4. And he makes 1, but he also fails 1. So he takes 1 wound out of the 6 he has. And then it's time for the group of zombies here to attack the ogre behind the burning house. They have +1 to hit because of the spell earlier, and they have 6 attacks. So that means they hit on a 4. And still only 2 hits. 2 claw hits, AP nothing. The ogre will defend with a 4. And he makes both of the defense rolls, so no wounds. And then he can fight back again if he can hit anything, 4 attacks. With his dual hand weapons hitting on 4s, and at least a couple of hits this time. He hits twice, and the zombies will need 6s to defend. They fail them both, so 2 zombies are removed, only 1 remaining. Next activation here is the ogre in the middle of the battlefield. He is heavily wounded, but he tries a daring move. He splits his 4 attacks between the Blood Warrior Demon and the group of zombies. 2 attacks to each of the enemies. First, the demon, and he fails them both. He still needs 4s to hit. No hits against the demon. What about the zombies? This time, he makes both of his attacks. So let's see if the zombies can defend. They will need 6s, and they fail them both. So 2 zombies are removed, but now he will, or the zombies and the demon will be able to fight back. The demon first with 1 attack with great weapon, and it's a 4, so it's a hit. And the ogre will need a 6 to defend because of the AP 4. And he makes it. That would have taken him down, but he managed to block the attack. And now the remaining zombie with 2 claws hitting on 5s. 1 and 2 failed attacks, so the ogre will not be hit. And he managed to take out 2 zombies. Now he backs off. But the Blood Warrior immediately responds. He charges against the ogre, which means he gets 1 extra attack and 1 automatic hit because of the impact rule. But he needs 6s to hit because he has already fought, and he fails his attacks. But the ogre is hit with the impact, and he rolls another 6 on his defense. So he is still not taken down. And again, he can also fight back, but with 6s and 1 hit against the Blood Warrior Demon. And he will need a roll of 5 to defend, and he fails. This attack could turn out to be a disaster for himself, because now he goes down with 1 wound, and he will have to roll on the wound chart. It's a 3, so he is stunned, but he is still in the battle. The group of goblins activate now. What are they up to? They charge against the stunned Blood Warrior, and that means they take him out automatically. So now these goblins have eliminated 2 enemy units. They are turning into goblin commandos. And now the sneaky ambush Blood Warrior here attacks the Orc Shaman in the back. 2 attacks hitting on 4s. He fails them both. He had the element of surprise, but he failed. Now the Orc Shaman turns around. He has 3 attacks with his hand weapon, hitting on 5s. And he rolls 1 5, so 1 hit back against the Blood Warrior. It's AP nothing, so the demon will need a 4. And he fails. So he goes down with 1 wound. His surprise attack failed miserably, and now he needs to roll on the wound chart. And he is only stunned. But the Orc Shaman has not yet activated, and he decides to charge the stunned Blood Warrior, so he removes him automatically. In the middle of the battlefield, one remaining zombie here decides to draw back, get closer to the objective, and into a more defensive position. The ogre behind the house has already been into combat with the zombies, but he still has his activation, so he attacks the remaining zombie, needing a 6 because he is fatigued. But one hit it is, and the zombie will have to come up with a 6 to defend. And he, as expected, failed that one and goes down with 1 wound. Let's see how he rolls on the wound chart. A 1, so he is stunned. The wizard now has a great opportunity to cast a spell against the ogre champion. He decides to fire a fireball against him and needs a 3 for it to work, and he fails. Otherwise, the champion would have taken 3 AP2 hits. But instead, the wizard decides to withdraw closer to the objective and the back of the battlefield. Now let's turn the attention to the Blood Warrior leader, the one with the banner of war. He hasn't done much yet, but now he charges against the ogre in the middle of the battlefield. 1 hit because of impact, and then 2 regular attacks with his great weapon hitting on 4s. And he hits 1 of them. The ogre is already heavily wounded, so now he is very close to be taken down. He tries to defend the impact hit, and that 1 is a success, but now he will need a 6. And it is a 6. Incredible. This ogre is attacked. I don't know how many times, but he is still standing. And he can fight back. He will need 6s to hit. And that would have been too much to ask. So he doesn't hit the Blood Warrior back. Last activation of this round is the other ambush Blood Warrior, and he also decides to charge the Shaman. He is not within reach of the banner of war, so he will not get his impact, but he will hit with a 4, and that means 2 hits against the Shaman. And he will need 6s to defend. And no 2 hits are going through. 2 wounds to the Orc Shaman. He can fight back 3 attacks, but he will need 6s because he has already fought this round. And no hits back. So now the Shaman is heavily wounded, and the Blood Warrior here might be able to take him down in the next round. So here we are at the end of round 2. Several units have been taken out, but none of the armies are below half strength yet. There is a heavy battle here in the middle of the battlefield, but the final attack of the Blood Warrior demon against the Shaman turned out to be fatal. The Shaman is wounded, and the Blood Warrior now contests the objective. So right now, at the moment, the Blood Warrior demons and the wizard have taken the lead. Now let's go to round number 3. And the first one to activate in round number 3 is the Ogre Warrior here. He turns his attention towards the Blood Warrior and tries to revenge the Orc Shaman. 4 attacks, hitting on 4s. And this time 3 hits. And they are all AP1. So the Blood Warrior will have to come up with 5s. And 1 5. And that means 2 hits and 2 wounds for the Blood Warrior. And he will have to roll on the wound chart. And with a roll of 6, he is eliminated. The wizard is up next, and he tries to cast the spell Leech on the Ogre Champion. He will need a 4, and if he's successful, the Ogre Champion will take 1 AP4 hit, but with Deadly. And the spell is good, with a roll of 6 here. And that's an AP4 hit, so the champion will need a 6 to defend. Now let's see. And a 6 it is. Once again, the ogres prove to be very, very tough. And the battle here between this ogre warrior and the blood warrior continues. The ogre charges 4 attacks and 4 complete failed rolls here. Not a single hit. And now the blood warrior will be able to fight back only with 1 attack. He will need a 4, and he also fails. So they swing their weapons, hitting nothing. The ogre will move back 1 inch. Next unit to activate is the single zombie here, and he stands back up on his feet. And then the goblins. What do? They charge back towards the objective and charge into the zombie guarding the objective. They need rolls of 5 to hit, and that means not anything from the commando goblins. This time, the zombie can fight back with 2 claw attacks, hitting on 5s, and also nothing from that attack. So the goblins will back off. And back to the battle in the middle here. The blood warrior charges into the ogre, and he will have 1 impact hit and then 2 regular attacks, but he will need 6s because he has already fought. So no regular hits, and the ogre will defend the impact hit with a roll of 4. Again, no wounds to any of the units. What about the ogre now? He can fight back. 4 attacks, needing 6s, and this time 1 hit. With AP1, the blood warrior demon will need a 5, and that's exactly what he gets. And then he backs off. The ogre champion here decides to attack the wizard, and by doing so he is also close enough to contest the objective. The champion has 4 attacks, and he hits on 4s with his AP3 great weapon. So let's see if he can hit anything this time. And this looks a lot better. 3 hits with the great weapon against the wizard, and the wizard will need 3 6s to survive this one. And he fails all of them. So 1 giant hit that gives him 3 wounds and takes him down. Let's see if he is down for good or he still plays a part in the battle. The wound chart roll is a 3, so he is stunned. The zombie activates and tries to eliminate the goblin group. 2 attacks, hitting on 6 because the zombie is fatigued and it fails both attacks. Now the goblins fight back, and they will also need a roll of 6. 1 of them is successful. So the zombie will have to defend on a 6 as well. And that's not enough. And the zombie goes down with 1 wound. And the roll on the wound chart, the zombie is stunned. The Orc Shaman decides to advance up the battlefield, and from this position he can target the Blood Warrior with the Banner of War with a headbutt spell. He will need a 4, and in that case the Blood Warrior will take 1 AP4 hit with Deadly, but he fails. And at the end of round 3, the Wizard and the Blood Warrior demons have been forced below half strength, and they will need morale tests. The Wizard will automatically fail because he is stunned, and the stunned zombie will be removed from the battlefield as well. Now, what about the other zombie? He will have to make an undead morale test. He will need a roll of 3 or more. And he's good. Now, what about the remaining Blood Warrior Demon? He needs a 4 to pass his morale test. And he makes it. He decides to stay and fight. It looks hopeless though, but he will activate first, so let's see what he can do. Let's go to round number 4. The Blood Warrior's chance is to take the Ogres and Orcs and Goblins below half strength as well and scare them away. So he decides to charge the Shaman as well as this Ogre Warrior. They are both wounded already. He will have 1 automatic impact hit on the Shaman, and then he will split his 2 attacks, 1 to each of the enemy units. He fails to hit the Shaman further, but he is successful in his attack against the Ogre Warrior. Now the Shaman first will defend his impact hit with a roll of 5, otherwise he will go down. And it's a roll of 5, so he blocks the attack and he is good. Now, what about the Ogre? He will need a 6, and countless times he has survived attacks from the demons by rolling a 6 in the very last second. Quite impressive. Now, the units can fight back. The Shaman first, he hits with a 5 against the Blood Warrior, and it's an AP nothing weapon, so he will need a roll of 4, and he makes it. And now the Ogre can fight back, turns around, 4 attacks with dual hand weapons, hitting on 4s, and this time he's not only able to defend, he can also attack. 4 devastating hits, and the Blood Warrior will need 5s to block. He defends 1 of the attacks, but he will receive no less than 3 wounds. And this could be the end for him. Let's see the roll on the wound chart. He has to roll less than 3. And, well, even though the dice roll cannot be seen here, he is taken out. So only 1 unit remaining on the demon side now, and the bloodthirsty commando goblins decide to charge the final remaining zombie. 3 charged attacks, hitting on 5s. And again they land at least 1 hit here. It's AP nothing, but the zombie will need a 6 to defend, and he fails. So now the zombie with 2 wounds go down. And the roll on the wound chart, it's a 5, and the goblins, for the 3rd time, have taken out an enemy unit. They certainly have been effective. So now we will see who the prisoner that the demons transported actually is. Is it Galtrin, Haleth, Faywin, or Raymond? And with a roll of 2, the prisoner is Haleth. So now Haleth is free. He is rescued by his old ally, the Orc Shaman. A quite unusual situation that an elf archer is rescued by an Orc Shaman and his ogres. But nonetheless, they will now see if they can find a way to stop the Necromancer and his evil forces. Thanks a lot for watching this battle report. I hope you'll join me for future Bat Rips.